Welcome to episode 33 of The Player and the Journalist with Karson Harris and David Vick. In this episode, we celebrate the year that was in women's lacrosse. Karson, the year is coming to a close. We are only 8 days, I believe it's 8 days, from Santa Claus coming to town at the time of this recording, okay? What are your general thoughts for this time of year and with the year coming to a close?
Well, this year went by so fast for me. I feel like it flew. But I am such a Christmas person. I love it. I was just telling David I celebrated for like a week and a half at this point with all my family. And it's just my favorite time of year ever. So I love Christmas and I love December as a month. But I am also really excited for the season this season because I feel like we had a little bit of a shift last season, kind of, or this season next year. Sorry, not this season. This season next year. I feel like we had a little bit of a shift last year, and I'm excited to see if that continues into 2024.
For sure, this offseason has gone by super fast.
Yeah, it did. I feel like we were just finishing, like we just took our 2-month break after the season. I feel like that just happened.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Christmas movie?
Yes, I can never remember the name of it. Oh, but it's a claymation, and it's the one with Heat Miser and Snow Miser. The song is like, I'm
Oh,
Mr.
yeah,
Heat
I know.
Miser.
It's like a short 30-minute one.
It's like 45 minutes long, yeah.
Okay.
But because it's like a claymation. The year without Santa Claus. That's what it
Okay.
is.
I remember watching that on ABC Family a lot when I was a kid.
I always look out for it. I should look. Actually, I haven't looked this year when it is. I need to pay attention to that.
For sure.
What is yours? Do you have a favorite Christmas movie?
It's got to either be Home Alone or A Christmas Vacation. The
Those
Home
are good
Alones are just so good. You can't go wrong with the classics, you know.
No, those are good too. I also love Elf.
Oh yeah,
I
that
love
one's really
Tyrrell. I
good.
think he's funny.
That's really good.
Yeah, those are probably my top two.
Awesome. So just two quick announcements. So this is Karson and I's 22nd episode together, going on 14 months, a year and 2 months of Karson and I co-hosting the podcast together. So that's pretty exciting.
That is cool.
You know, a little late on the anniversary, but I just saw that this morning when I was going through our episode release dates. And then second off, we did get a review on Apple Podcasts on September 28th that I keep forgetting to read. And so I'm going to do it now before we get started so I don't forget. It is from AMR000. And this person said, the most recent episode on origin stories is one of my favorites. So many relatable points and love to see others have the same passion for lacrosse as me. It's hard to find women's lacrosse podcasts and love what this one has done. Keep it up. Would love to brainstorm some ideas sometime. So thank you very much for AMR. Obviously we don't have a lot of reviews yet. So anytime we get one, we will read it on this podcast. Okay. Also, if you have ideas, please hit us up on Instagram because there is no way for us to contact you through the Apple Podcast review or even leave a comment for whatever reason. So hit us up on Instagram if you listen to this. Okay. And now, without further ado, okay, we have 4 topics in this episode, starting with Game of the Year. We will also hit Player of the Year, Surprise of the Year, and Moment of the Year. So Game of the Year, Karson, you are up first. What do you have for the audience?
I think, and you're probably going to think this is basic, but my Game of the Year was UNC in Denver. One, because I was there, and it was a really fun game to be at because like the energy was really high and like it was at UNC Stadium, which is amazing. But I like also kind of wanted Denver to win because it's just like they were the underdog. So it was a really cool, like it was just a really cool atmosphere. So I think that definitely influenced my decision. But also like I just kind of one of those things that everyone was like, yeah, well, when they play someone good, they won't win. Like when they play someone good, they won't be able to have, like when Denver plays somebody good, they won't be able to hold them. Or when they do this, they won't be able to, like that defense can't last forever. Like I think people said a lot of things, probably including myself, like about the fact that defense can't hold up against people of like the top 5, like the Power 5 schools. And then it did. And it was just really cool to watch. And UNC being UNC, like one of the most high-powered offenses, like historically that we've had. And I think to watch that like defensive battle happen, and it was a really cool out of UNC too, because they also had a defensive battle. Like they don't, like Denver's offense obviously isn't their like highlight, but they also had to play. Like UNC had some pretty crazy turnovers too, or caused turnovers in that game too. So I think like we talk a lot about goals, and like a lot of the rest of my thing talks about like goals and attack, and we do a lot of that. But I think that this was such a cool, it really captured like the beauty of women's lacrosse, in my opinion, because it was so low scoring that you really got to see the game and like see what happened when players got tired, because there weren't the goal breaks. Like people were exhausted. And I think like it was just kind of a cool thing to sit back and watch, because it was a lot of technique and finesse, and just kind of a little bit less about like, it really was less about momentum and more about like how good, it came down to like how good each player was, like technically, skillfully. And I think that was really fun to watch. And when I was looking at it for this, because I was like, I think I've talked about it before, and we've talked about it before on the podcast. So I was like, I don't want to just spit the same like facts out every time. And what I didn't realize, I think we talked about before how North Carolina didn't score in the second half, which is insane to me. Like that, I bet you would have.
Crazy.
If I was a betting woman, you would have been like, I'll bet you $1 million UNC doesn't score in a whole half. I would have doubled down and been like, I'll bet you $2 million they do. Like I would have done. So that was kind of crazy. But what I thought was amazing about this is there wasn't a single card given out in this game.
Really?
I went back to look at it, and now maybe what I was looking at was wrong. Like I could be wrong about this because it seems crazy. But what I looked at, not a single like card was given. There weren't any penalty summaries like given in the box recap. And I just thought that was amazing, because I was like,
they played defense the whole time.
The whole game, right? And I'm like, that's like must have been one of the reasons why, even if there was one, like even if I'm missing one, like the fact that it was such a defensive battle, like I think, and then I was like, maybe that's why it was so much fun to watch, because like it was so clean. Also, like it was just such a clean game that was like so technical. Yeah,
that was good. That was a really good game. I think kind of going back to like what you just said about why the game was so good, I think part of the reason is there were so few stoppages. And so it was just like there was constant action. And obviously you want the goals and stuff because that's entertainment, and it gives the players and fans the time to catch their breath in between. But like that was such a unique game that we just don't see a lot of. I mean, neither team cracked double digits. Neither team was even close to cracking double digits in that game. And so like that was a crazy game. And obviously you were at it. So that's a good answer. I have no complaints about that. That was a great game.
Sweet. Yeah, I know. It was just, yeah, it was really unique. Unique's a good way to put it, because you don't see that very often, especially with like better sticks, like stronger players, like insane athletes, like now kind of breaking into women's lacrosse. I feel like you are seeing higher scoring games. So to see that was really cool.
Yeah, and it was so weird. I think it would have been interesting if that game happened during the regular season. I don't think people would have enjoyed it as much. But since it was with the Final Four berth on the line, like we were on the edge of our seats the entire time. It wasn't like we know they're going to score, and so like they'll go back and forth, and then in the fourth quarter it'll get close. Like the whole way you're like, if someone scores here, that's a really big deal, because there's like no scoring. So
right, like I feel like the fifth goal came with like a lot of time left, but when they scored it, I was like, oh, that's it. Like that's the game. Denver wins.
Yeah, actually, I'm coming back to that goal later on. Okay, coming back to that. Okay, so this was a little tougher for me, because I feel like last year I was like Duke versus Pittsburgh in the regular season. That was the game of the year. That was like no doubt about it. This one I struggled with a little bit. Obviously, there were a lot of great games, but I'm going back to March the 1st. Okay, so very early on in the season, when James Madison beat Maryland 8-7 at home.
I looked at James Madison too.
That was a crazy. So fun fact, not fun for Maryland, but James Madison beat them twice this season, each by 1 goal. Okay, and so this one on March the 1st, I mean, I remember going into that game, we both said, I probably was the leader of this, but I was like, I don't think James Madison is James Madison anymore. I just don't think they have it this year. And then they come out and they win that game. And I remember watching that game and I was so nervous, because it just felt like Maryland cannot lose this game. And not because they were Maryland versus James. It's just they had so many opportunities, and James Madison had so few opportunities. But James Madison cashed on every single one, and Maryland did not. So 8-7 was the final score. So another low scoring game. Corey Edmondson for Maryland cut the lead to 1 by making it 5-4 in the third quarter with 2:57 to go with a goal. JMU responded with a 3-goal run, going up 8-4. Maryland responded with a 3-goal run to make it 8-7, and that was with 4:22 remaining. Kat Buchanan had some big saves in this one down the stretch, and that was just like, I feel like that was a season. It like kickstarted JMU season. I think they finished 19-3, something crazy like that. And I mean, that game was just so crazy. I remember when I can't remember if it was when, I can't remember what goal it was, but it was in the second half. James Madison, a player for them, scored a goal, and she was in tears before she even got off the field. I'm just like, the game's not over. You got to get it together. And I'm just like, it was just such a crazy game to watch. And so that was just crazy. So I was like, it's not like there's 20 seconds left. There's like a quarter and some change to go. Like, okay.
Like, suck it back in. Yeah. That's so funny. I feel like that's kind of the same thing though. Like it had that same feel of like, if you can finish this early, like there's not a lot of scoring going back and forth. You know what I mean? So like when they went on that 3-goal run, they were probably like, this is it. We can hold them because they can't put up goals.
And so I have a few stats on this game. So Maryland outshot James Madison 29-16, including 10-2 in the fourth quarter. Okay. Let's see. Wow. Maryland had more shots on goal. The difference in the game, Maryland only had 4 saves. So Emily Sterling, who won Big Ten Goalkeeper of the Year, struggled. She only had 4 saves. James Madison had 10. James Madison had 2 more turnovers. Crown balls were pretty even. Maryland won 13-5 in the draw control battle. So all these stats pretty much say they should have won minus the saves, the save differential. And so Maryland had so many opportunities in this game, and somehow, some way, James Madison hung on. So it was a great game. That's my game of the year.
That's a good one. I think that's a good one. Yeah, I feel like I was so hot on Maryland. I thought they were going to be, I was so ready for them to just like dominate this year. And then they super disappointed me. But yeah, that was that. I'm trying to remember if I watched, I'm getting both of the JMU Maryland games mixed up. Like I can't remember which one that I was locked into one and I can't remember which one it was, but it might have been.
So yeah, this one was 8-7. And then the second one was in the NCAA tournament. And I think that was like, it was definitely higher scoring. I can pull up that score real quick. That was 15-14, also at JMU. So JMU hosted both, won both by 1 goal.
Yeah, I think I was watching the first one because I remember being like, oh my God, if they lose this game, there goes my whole Maryland spiel. Like I was so hot on them. I was so confident. And like, I remember being like, oh my God, if they lose this, like, it was just wrong. I was just straight up wrong. And I'm going to have to admit I was wrong.
Yeah. So anyways, those are our 2 games of the year. Okay. Also, one honorable mention, Holy Cross over Bucknell on April 27th. It was the last game of the season, I think, for both of them, at least for Bucknell, though. 22-21. I mean, 22-21. Okay, it was crazy. And I was watching that game like, this is crazy.
Yeah, that's so much boring.
Moving on to our player of the year. So I will go first on this one. I'm not going to steal your thunder. So coming into this, I was thinking, well, we're both going to say Izzy Scane. So then I was like, I'm not going to say Izzy Scane because we have to have something else to talk about. Okay. So then I thought about it. And so, yes, I would go with Izzy Scane. But since I know Karson is going to go with that, I wanted to have some variety on the show today. Okay. So then I have 2 players that came to mind. One who I think was like the 3rd player of the year. I'm going to say Meaghan Tyrrell. And Meaghan Tyrrell, I'm saying her more so because I just loved watching Meaghan Tyrrell. She was absolutely insane. She was the first this season. Obviously, she got the COVID year, but she was the first Syracuse player and still the only Syracuse player ever to record 400 or more points in a career. I mean, all the great players that have come through Syracuse, she's the only one to hit 400 plus points. Okay. She left Syracuse better than she found it. And she left the sport of women's lacrosse better than she found it. So I'm really saying Meaghan Tyrrell as a player of the year is more of like a lifetime achievement award. Obviously, she didn't have the big numbers this year just because she was face guarded a million times. But she was still incredible. And then before I get to my number 2 player of the year behind Izzy Scane, I have what am I trying to say? I have a bonus. Okay, Erin Kuykendall. She came out of nowhere this year. She was insane. Shout out Erin Kuykendall. So she plays for Northwestern. Izzy Scane plays for Northwestern. If you don't like Northwestern, you're not going to like this because I got my Laliberty. Got another Northwestern player. Okay? I think if it wasn't for Izzy Scane, Laliberty might have been the player of the year because she was absolutely insane. I thought from the jump, she was the best goalie in America all season long.
True.
She's like a gymnast in between the pipes. Okay, she's doing all sorts of moves, and you're like, how can she do that? How does the human body move like that? She's so flexible. Okay, and she's making all sorts of acrobatic saves. She was absolutely insane. I have in my notes, who saw that coming? Because obviously we talked about, but prior to the season, I said I think she'll be an upgrade from Madison Doucette the year before, but I didn't see this coming. Okay, I mean, my goodness, she was insane. So I thought she was the best goalie in America. She has that it factor. The energy is just oozing out of her. She's like the heart and soul of that team, I feel like. And then the only thing I will say about my Laliberty is it is a shame that she did not win Big Ten Goalie of the Year. Emily Sterling is a great goalie for Maryland, but come on now. I feel like there's no one better than my Laliberty. So that's a little disappointing. So anyways, my players of the year, I'm going to go with Izzy Scane first. My Laliberty 2, Meaghan Tyrrell 3, Aaron Kuykendall 4. It was a good year for the Wildcats. Okay.
Yeah, well, that was why they were your national champions. Well, I appreciate you not stealing my thunder because I did have Izzy Scane as my number one, as I thought you might as well. I literally have, I don't think this is debatable. I think
that's fair. That's fair.
Just makes the game of lacrosse look so easy. I remember we'd watch her games and I just think to myself, just go. Just go. Because I know you can. In my head, she could just take it whenever she wanted to go score a goal, even though I know that that's not how it works. She just made lacrosse look that easy. So I don't even really have to try to convince anybody. I think this one was pretty obvious.
She won the tour, Tom. You don't have to convince anyone.
Right. But I did want to make a note that she did have 14 caused turnovers during the season too. And I think that what you can notice about her is she picks and chooses for times of when she's riding and when she's not riding, which you have to do if you're gonna need to score 10 goals in a game. You can't exhaust yourself doing 70-yard sprints, whatever, as often as you can. But when she made a mistake, if she was the player to turn it over, if she was the player to miss the goal, I think what you could highlight from her is the fact that she was the one riding. She was the one trying to get the ball back. She was the one trying to cause turnovers in the ride, especially when she was the one that made the mistake. And I think that's what makes her even better than a lot of other great players because she has that hustle factor too. So obviously everyone thinks that. I just wanted to highlight. I think that's what stands her apart from a lot of, obviously with everything else, that is also something. And I also kind of wanted to give a shout out to Isabella Peterson on JMU because we just mentioned, Izzy Scane has Aaron Kuykendall. She has this incredible team around her too. And so do they have good players at JMU too, but they don't have a top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 attackers and midfielders at JMU like they do at Northwestern. And so people's goal when they go into a game at JMU is to stop Isabella Peterson. If they can stop her, they win the game. And that's an impossible situation to be in. And so I just thought she deserved a shout out too, because I think the fact that she continued to show up for JMU, even when she was the known threat by leaps and bounds on that team, is very impressive. So that was kind of my, just in case you said Izzy Scane, I had somebody else, I needed to talk about somebody else. I threw her in there as well, because I do think that that's a really hard position to be in. Is I know when I catch the ball, there's 3 people on me and I still have to find a way to score so that my team wins. That's hard. And
yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and it's hard.
She didn't transfer away from it either, so props to her.
Yeah. So I thought she deserved a shout out too because she is really good and she's still at JMU and killing it too. So I just thought that she deserved something, a mention.
Sounds good. So we have 2 honorable mentions.
Yes.
Normally it's Karson that comes out with well, I'm going to give you a few instead of one. This time it was me that gave a few, so I still have the ways to go to catch up to Karson and not following the prompts. Okay. Anyways,
my democratic answers. my political.
Shout out Isabella Peterson. I think it's great for a player so she's sponsored by Gate, and it's just great to see a player like her. Obviously, JMU, they're a big name in the lacrosse community, but overall, they're a smaller school. It's just good to see a player like her get the recognition she deserves at a smaller school. So shout out to her. She's also in our college football bowl mania this year. And she's off to a hot start. Let me tell you, we're going to release our first standings update next week. And we have, I want to say, out of the 12 people, we have 6 that are 6-1 through the first 7 games. So it's competitive this year. It's good. So
y'all are lucky I'm not in it again this year.
Yep, Karson, bobblehead Karson. So,
I
okay.
just spilled it last year on accident.
Okay, let's see. Moving on. Topic number 3, surprise of the year. Karson, who you got?
Mine is Boston College's strength, even without Charlotte North, because I think that this was a good opportunity for me to admit that I was wrong, because I definitely started the season saying, like, I don't think they're going to be the same. I don't even think I put them in my top 5, because I was like, they're not going to be the same as without Charlotte North. They're not going to have a go-to. Like, I genuinely would have stood behind that, like, when you lose your go-to player, that you need a year to recover. And they didn't really. I mean, they didn't like kill games. They still lost a couple 1-goal games, but they won 3 1-goal games against Syracuse twice and Notre Dame once. And that was very surprising for me, because I didn't think that they were going to be able to pull that out. And they played very much as a team. Like, it was they didn't have like that person that they had in Charlotte North. They didn't have that, but I was pleasantly surprised at how the team was able to step up and like still get things done, and their defense stepped up and when they needed to.
Shea Baker, best freshman defender in the country.
Yeah, and so I just think, like, also they were averaging 16 goals a game in the regular season. Now, that if you include all of they kind of like pitter-pattered. And I mean, I say they pitter-pattered in the postseason, but they did make the national championship. So as much as you can pitter-patter, as much as you can pitter-patter and make the national championship, I guess they did. But they did, like, their goals a game average was significantly lower in postseason. But I mean, still being able to put 16 goals a game without your token Charlotte North, I thought was really surprising. I wasn't ready for that this year. Coming off of that, they were also my disappointment of the year, because I went to the UNC Boston College game and I was so excited about it because I was finally able to go. And then they got their butt kicked 16-5, and UNC just wiped the floor with them that game. And I was so sad. So as much as I am happy and pleasantly surprised that they did so well, I wish that they would have done it in that game as well.
Well, it is important to note that was the game that was really the game they went to Shea Dulce in goal. They went to her in I believe it was at some point in the second half of that game, and then she started the rest of the year.
Yeah. You're right. I didn't remember that.
And they looked awful that game. They were bad.
That was a horrible game.
Yeah, I know.
What is happening?
Yeah, that was pretty bad. There was one commercial break, and they were going to commercial, and they had the camera on Acacia Walker-Weinstein. She's like, "Y'all gotta wake up," and they didn't wake up.
No.
But
anyway, this was mostly positive. They were my surprise of the year for being playing as team oriented as they did, and they didn't they took that loss in stride and handled it really well, I thought.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing that people should know coming out of 2023, if there is one coach you do not bet against, it is Acacia Walker-Weinstein.
Yeah.
I mean, what is this? Like 7 years in a row they've been in the national championship? Something crazy. I mean,
right.
When no one expected them to be there this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, you can't, at that point, you can't be like, oh, well, you just have really good players, because over 7 years, like, you've come in. Yeah. You've done the whole rotation. So,
yeah.
It could be a coach.
It could be. It is. I'm not gonna. We're gonna keep it positive this episode. So, but I'm just gonna say, Boston College and Acacia Walker-Weinstein, do not doubt them. Okay. I have 2 again for this one. Okay. My main one is Marquette. I know we talked about them on the show. They went to the NCAA tournament for the first time, had a program record 15 wins. They were ranked very high at one point. I mean, it was just an unbelievable year for them. The Golden Eagles, okay, they were flying high this year. I believe they're the Golden Eagles. I'm pretty sure they're the Golden Eagles. And so just a great job by head coach Meredith Black and the entire coaching staff. They were one of the most fun teams to watch all season. They did come up short in their biggest games. They lost to Northwestern. It was close for a little bit. They lost to Denver. And then they lost in the first round NCAA tournament to Richmond in a game that wasn't really that close. So in the biggest moments, they came up short, but overall it was a great year for them. And I'm a huge Marquette fan. And they went to the NCAA tournament. That's very few teams that get to go to the NCAA tournament each year. So that's a lifetime memory right there. So shout out Marquette. And then I started the year with One team. I'm gonna end the year with one team. You know where I'm going with this, Karson.
Yeah, but I don't know what their surprise is gonna be.
My surprise is Duke and how awful they were this
Okay,
season.
that's like the only way this can be a surprise if you talk about how bad they played.
And listen, I know I just said like 2 seconds ago we're gonna keep this positive, but Duke struggling as bad as they did this year was just mind-blowing to me. Okay, and I have a lot of capacity in my brain to because I have a big head to comprehend stuff, and I could not comprehend this. Okay, Duke was so bad. It was unbelievable. They had a lot of bad luck go against them with injuries and whatnot. So I feel for them, but my golly Moses, they were bad. It was bad. I mean, it was just so bad. I'm sorry. I'm gonna stop saying it's bad. I still love you, Kirsten Kimmel. I'm still a fan of you, Katie D. Simone. I still love you, Sophia LaRose. Okay, but it was just a bad year for the Duke Blue Devils. But I'm gonna end with one more positive. Okay, Jocelyn Torres in cage for Virginia Tech as a true freshman. She was amazing in goal for Virginia Tech. She was amazing. She almost was the reason they upset North Carolina during the season because she was so unbelievable in cage. So she is a star, a future star in our sport.
Wait, where did she come from? Do you know where she came from?
Jocelyn Torres?
Yeah.
I don't know. So she was a freshman, but I'm pretty sure her sister transferred from Navy to Towson, who also, I think they're sisters, who also plays goalie. But Jocelyn was a freshman last year.
I think they're from my town.
The Torreses know how to save lacrosse balls going 90 miles an hour, okay?
Oh, I didn't know she had a sister.
Maybe they're not sisters, but they have the same last name and they both play goalie, so I just assumed that they were.
Yeah, Joe Torres. So Joe Torres is the one that played for Navy.
Okay. And now she's at Towson, and she's really good too.
Yeah, she's from my town. I don't know about the other one, but I didn't know. That's what I was thinking because I knew that girl's name was Joe Torres and that she played goalie. So I was like, wait a minute, I thought she was old. I didn't realize she was a freshman. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Karson, do you have any thoughts on her or my Duke Blue Devils?
I do. Duke just felt like they just like couldn't get their feet under them this season. Like it just felt like they were like, you know, those cartoon characters where they run and their feet just like spin and then they just like, you know what I mean? I just felt like they couldn't get their feet under them. Like they couldn't get that to happen. Like I don't know what it was. Like the ball just didn't bounce their way this year. They got when they needed things to happen. Like sometimes, you know, when you're going through life and you're like, I just really need this to work out. And then it just doesn't. And you're like, oh my God, I'm like, this is the worst luck. It felt like that a lot of times. I just felt like they were kind of like moving through the motions a little bit slower than you anticipate. Like it just felt like they were moving at a different speed than I think that either of us were anticipating.
I just going off that, I would say like every single Duke game for the longest time, even till like 3 or 4 games into the season, or with 3 or 4 games left into the season, so they had played like 15 or so games, I was like, okay, they're going to get it going. They're going to get it going. And they never got it going, not even close.
Yeah. No, I agree. I felt like it was one of those things where like they just have to work out the kinks. Like they'll be fine. They just have to work out the kinks. And then it just like kind of let them carry through the whole season. And I don't know if that's like a culture thing, a team thing. Like, I don't know. I would love to know what the like belief was or like the talk was in the locker room, because it feels like there wasn't like an appropriate mentality to like keep moving forward. You know what I mean? That's just kind of felt like there needed to be a mental switch that just felt like it never happened. And obviously I don't know because I'm not in their locker room, but I did feel like that was kind of what they were missing, like some spark.
Yeah, so I just had to throw Duke out there because, you know, I was so high on them coming into the season. I even picked them to win the national championship, which I'm a little embarrassed about at this point in time. But no one could have predicted what was coming for them. Okay, no one. Okay.
Yeah, clearly no one should listen to David and I, because I picked Maryland. So whoever we pick, just ignore it.
Let me tell you this. I am going with a very safe choice for my national championship pick in 2024. I am going with someone who is guaranteed to get close. Okay. That's all I'm going for this year. I can't go 2 years in a row and be like, David's credibility is shot. Okay.
Yeah, we can't like try. We can't try for like the long ball and be like, we can't do like the 1 to 1800 or the 1800 odds just to like be cool if they win. We're out of that.
Yeah.
We've lost
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all the underdog teams out there. Duke ruined it for you. I probably have to take at least a 5-year break from putting myself on the ledge again. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not allowed.
Okay. moving on to our final topic, moment of the year. Karson, would you like to go first or would you like me to go first?
You can go first.
Okay, well, I kind of foreshadowed this earlier, but Kayla DeRose for Denver, her game winner against UNC to send Denver to the Final Four for the first time ever is my moment of the year. That was such a bonkers game. It was so crazy. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh, it was just so crazy. It was bananas. Okay. Kayla DeRose, one of the 3 DeRose triplets that played at Denver, she scored with 6:31 left on the clock. That's when she scored the go-ahead and proved to be the game winner.
Oh, yeah.
And not only was it with 6:31 to go on the clock, it was super late in the possession. Like, there was no type of like scheme or anything. Like, the possession was junk. So she took the ball, she went to Gage, okay, and she scored on the bounce shot. And we had Trinity McPherson on the show, and she said it was the most casual game winner you'll ever see. Because like it really was. And I will repeat it again. The offense was hard to watch in that game in a lot of ways. And on this particular possession for Denver, they had nothing. I think it was like 5 or 6 seconds left on the clock, and she was like, I got to go to Cage because someone's got to go. We might as well just shoot the ball. Can't score if you don't shoot. And not only did she shoot, she bounced it home. It was just so sick. I think it caught the goalie off guard for UNC a little bit, honestly, but that was crazy.
Yeah, that's funny. That's your moment of the year because it was so not dramatic, like at all. Like
Yeah,
it was the moment of the year. It was the most casual moment of the year in the whole world. Like there was no fireworks, no explosion. It was just like, oh, ball's in the back of the net. Cool. Glad it got there.
I think you are correct on that. I would say the reason it's my moment of the year, like in the moment, I wouldn't have guessed that it was the moment of the year. But like after Denver won that game and to go to their first Final Four ever, like, I don't know, that was just, I don't know. And now that we've had time to marinate, as Karson likes to use the word marinate, we've had time to marinate. Okay. That's the moment I'm going with. What do you have, Karson?
Yeah, no, I believe you. I'm not discredit. I think that that's true. Like, I agree with you. I just think it's it's so funny that it's the moment of the year. It's so not dramatic.
Karson would know. She was at that game.
I was. I had 2. One of them was Izzy Scane announcing her 6th year on our podcast because that was pretty cool and a huge moment for Lacrosse extras and one that I'll probably remember for a long time. So that wasn't a Lacrosse moment, so I have 2, but that one I had to mention because I think that was a really cool thing that happened for Lacrosse. Having Izzy Scane on the podcast, first of all, was a huge step in our direction. Having her announce something like that on the podcast was a huge thing for us. So I just thought that was for Lacrosse extras, that was the moment of the year, in my opinion, for us personally.
That's a great answer, Karson. That's the best thing you said all year long. That's the best thing you said in 14 months of us working together.
Would you say that was my moment of the year? Yeah, anyway, so that was my not off the field moment of the year. But then my moment, I should have ended with that. Shoot. Dang it. Mic drop and get out of here. No, anyway.
Now disappoint us with your regular moment of the year.
Yeah, here it goes. It was when Richmond beat UVA in double overtime. So it's kind of a game of the year, but I think it's the moment of the actual winning for me that counts as the moment of the year because I have a soft spot for Richmond. Like the first girl I ever trained goes to Richmond right now, and I just like the school as a whole, and I think they're a cool program, and I love the way they play. Like they play really gritty, really scrappy, like really together. I'm always just kind of like cheering for them to win. So Richmond upset them 16-15 in double overtime, and Virginia was ranked 10th at the time, and I don't think Richmond was ranked. They were going into that game 5-2. They'd lost to UMass and Navy, which were like the 2 games that were like their strength of schedule at that point. They pretty much like hadn't proved themselves in big games that they should like win. And then they ended up beating Virginia, who was a top 10 team at the time. And I just think that that's a really cool moment for Richmond. And something like beating a top 10 team is insane. Like that's just not something that everybody gets to say that they did in their career, even when you're like, I think we got as high as 8 during my career randomly, like at the end of the season or something. And like, we never got to say we beat a top 10 team. Like we were in the top 10 and we hadn't beaten a top 10 team.
You were the top 10 team.
Yeah, we were the top 10 team somehow miraculously. But like I just thought that was for the people on that team. That's a really cool moment to have in your season, and it can be like a jump starter. So that was my moment of the year. The underdog moment. I'll always go an underdog moment.
And you just triggered so many things in my brain. Okay. One, about Richmond, that was a great win. And also their game against North Carolina in the NCAA tournament was crazy. That was great. I know we talked about it on the show, but that deserves another mention. That was crazy. They lost by 4, I want to say, but they were in that game until just a few minutes ago.
You're right.
So that was great. And then you mentioned Virginia. I got another thing to mention about Virginia. I have it in this is more about their opponent. So I'm sorry if you're a Virginia fan. I'm sorry I got to say this, but Albany upsetting Virginia in the NCAA tournament, that was bonkers.
Also a game of the year. Yeah. That was crazy. Oh my God, that was such a good game too. I forgot about that one too.
Yeah, especially because that was in Denver in the first round of the tournament. So it was it was a night game, which we don't get a lot of, which was nice. But it was also super late because it was on the West Coast. So it was the last game of the day. And it was just like people waking up. Albany beat Virginia. What?
Yeah, wait. I fell asleep during that game. I had it on my laptop, but I was in my bed and I woke up and I was like, Albany won? Like what? I woke up at like the middle of the night and it was like playing. I woke up like right at the end and it was playing on my laptop. Like it hadn't quite ended yet. Like they were celebrating and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, that was also unfortunate for a few reasons. That was Julie Myers' final game as Virginia's head coach. She retired, and Rachel Clark's final game in a Virginia uniform. So that's not a very good memory for the Virginia program.
No, that is sad. You're right. A couple upsets on them this year then between the Richmond UVA and Albany, because they were a good team. Like I felt like they were a really solid team too. To have like 2 big upsets against you is tough.
Yeah. So, and then you mentioned something off the lacrosse field that made me think of 2 things. Well, I'm going to mention one thing that was on the lacrosse field. I'm very surprised at Stanford's year. They had a very down year for their standards, so that was surprising. And then off the lacrosse field, the transfer portal just gets crazier and crazier. Like we had so many transfers this off season. It's just the transfer portal just blows my mind. Like it just blows my mind.
It's got to be almost done, right? I guess now the problem is girls are going to like a smaller school for 2 years, getting really good, and then transferring to a school that's like bigger.
I have some problems with that.
Yeah, I don't love that either.
I mean,
I think it just makes it hard for like a smaller program to ever build themselves. Like it's hard to ever get yourself like better if you lose your star to bigger schools like in 2 years.
Yeah, and I think we're kind of seeing that across all sports, especially football. I don't know the number. It was like 1,000+ people enter the transfer portal in D1 football recently, like as soon as the portal opened. So it's one of those things where I get if it's for a grad year, that's more understandable, I think. And I'm not trying to say I'm not against the transfer portal. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm the biggest advocate for it because I do think there are certain cases when it's good. But like if you spend 4 years at a school and then you want to take a grad year, okay. But if you're at a school for like 2 years and you become a really big name at that school and that coaching staff and that school develops you and then you leave them to go to, there's not a solution to that, but I don't know.
Yeah. No, I don't love it either. It's kind of a bummer. And also there's so much rebranding right now in rebranding's the wrong word, but like shifting of conferences because of football. Like college football is like making the conferences crazy. It's going to be really interesting to see how that impacts other sports also, because I don't know. I think all of your sports have to be in the same conference, don't they? You can't
they do not have to be. So if your conference does not have the sport, then you can be in another conference.
But what if your conference has a sport? I would assume you have to be there.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
There's no more Pac-12 lacrosse. Or wait, no.
Yeah. There can't be.
Is there? Oh no, the Pac-12. Okay, so the Pac-12 I guess because the school year goes from fall to spring. So the Pac-12 they have their season, and so this will be the final season of the Pac-12. And then you're going to have Stanford and the ACC. What? I mean, the dumbest
that's what
stuff.
I mean. I don't like it.
Yeah. Yes, I think college athletics is not in a great spot right now. And I'd hope that does not negatively impact our sport. But I feel like it's going to negatively impact a lot of sports. So we'll see how that plays out.
Money, money, money.
I know. So, I mean, they should just give the money to Lacrosse Extras. We'll do good things with it, okay?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We'll rebrand. We'll reconference. We'll get everybody where they need to be.
For sure. So, anyways, that is our year-end recap. Do you have any final thoughts before we sign off for the final time in 2023?
No, crazy year, fun year. I was way more into lacrosse this year than I ever was in my 5 years of college. So I appreciate Lacrosse Extras for giving me that because it was fun to follow along. And I hope the podcast got better because of it, because I was actually able to understand what was happening. So yeah, it was a fun year. I had a really good time.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for listening. We had a great year and we will be back better than ever in 2024.